Hello, welcome to the channel. I'm Millais Gray. I thought what we could look at is this matter of Norway. I looked at an older video of mine and just saw that there was a new comment on there that reads as follows, and I thought it's offers a good opportunity to talk about a few things, because it's come up in the recent open circle. Maybe I'll make a link somewhere here. Let's just explain the situation. Norway Supreme Court has ruled in favor of Jehovah's Witnesses. So let's take a look at a document that I have prepared here. So yes, a video was posted on the Norway Supreme Court ruling. I gave a response to that, but I've had a series of them. So the particular video that I'm talking about, there's of course a transcript. I like putting transcripts there for persons to be able to follow that. And of course I do encourage, though I've got my own views, of course, but I do encourage, along with the working thesis, antithesis, and I say for synthesis, and this must be done with healthy skepticism. So we have a comment, and I've seen similar kinds of comments about this, and it seems to be responding to the news about the, if you want to say reversal, or you want to say the Supreme Court upholding the Jehovah's Witness case. In other words, it's a JW victory. So this is the comment that came in that I thought is quite interesting. It says, Jehovah has crushed our enemies with a mighty blow. This comes from a viewer named KK-AA-YY. So just to start again cleanly, Jehovah has crushed our enemies with a mighty blow. Legal victory. Jehovah's Witnesses win landmark Supreme Court case in Norway on April the 30th, 2026. The Supreme Court of Norway ruled that the government violated the religious freedom of Jehovah's Witnesses when it deregistered our national legal entity in December 2022. Furthermore, the court ruled that the government's subsequent denial of state grants to Jehovah's Witnesses was illegal. This positive decision resulted from the court thoroughly reviewing our Bible-based beliefs and practices and determining that they are fully in harmony with Norwegian and international law. This ruling is final and cannot be appealed. As a united worldwide brotherhood, we rejoice at the Supreme Court's decision and give all thanks to Jehovah. Psalms 79:13. So I thought what we could do is share with the audience the reply, the channel replies. Thank you for sharing your perspective. This is addressed to KK-AA-YY or KK-AA-YY. Thank you for sharing your perspective and for acknowledging the court's decision. It's encouraging that policies have been updated in recent years. For example, including parents when a minor raises serious concerns. That's a positive step on paper. The question many families still have is about how consistently and effectively those safeguards operate in practice. Longer context follows. From what has been reported by various individuals, there can be a situation where processes feel slow or unclear to those seeking help. Outcomes vary depending on how cases are handled locally. Individuals who raise concerns may feel exposed to social or disciplinary consequences, while matters are still unresolved. This can create a difficult environment for a child, parent, or even an elder who is already in a vulnerable position. May I ask a practical question, one that I think matters to families, elders, and authorities alike? How would you personally assist a child or baptized minor who reports a pattern of harm from a leader or otherwise within the congregation? In particular, what immediate steps would you take to ensure their safety? Would you prioritize reporting to external authorities where appropriate? And how would you protect them from social or disciplinary consequences while concerns are being examined? I ask this in good faith because many individuals describe situations where raising concerns has sometimes led to being labeled as disloyal or facing consequences rather than receiving protection. From a scriptural standpoint, I would also value your view. How far should Matthew 18:15-35 be applied or exhausted in cases involving harm, particularly where a child or vulnerable person is involved? The Supreme Court ruling addressed state action and religious freedom. But for many, the lived question remains, how are the vulnerable individuals safeguarded in practice? If there are clear, workable answers to that, it would be genuinely valuable to hear them. Kind regards. Matthew Millais Gray. So there's also a note for viewers and contributors. The comment that has been pinned, or I've said a note for viewers and contributors, the comment above has been pinned because it highlights a real and important tension following the Supreme Court ruling. The court addressed questions of state action and religious freedom. It did not determine how internal practices are experienced in all cases, particularly where children or vulnerable individuals are concerned. For many, the ongoing question remains practical rather than theoretical. How are safeguarding concerns handled in real situations? And how are those who raised them protected in the process? This space welcomes respectful contributions from all perspectives. The aim is not to attack belief, but to better understand how faith, law, and safeguarding can align in practice. Please engage with care for those who may have lived experience of harm. It's quite a bit of information, eh? Now, I would like to talk about a friend of the channel and somebody who has been working very hard to protect people. And this is Linda James. So Linda James, I realize that you read this letter out from Carol Ballard, Karelballard, and I thought that was appropriate because you had come onto the open circle and read this out loud. Sometimes there's technical problems, but I thought it was very positive, in my opinion, and I appreciated your efforts and that of the writer. So I'm going to read this out loud, please, just as a reflection from the open circle live chat and also the Video Ninja discussion. It was a good discussion. Really appreciated the dynamics there and the persons there who were showing some very valid concerns. So here's the letter. Carol Ballard says, for those feeling discouraged by the April 30, 2026 ruling from the Supreme Court of Norway, take a step back and look at what actually happened. And more importantly, what didn't happen? Yes, the court ruled in favor of Watchtower, also known as Jehovah's Witnesses. But that decision was not a declaration that shunning is harmless, justified, or beyond scrutiny. It was a much narrower ruling about whether the state acted lawfully in withdrawing benefits. The court focused heavily on principles tied to Article 9 of the European Convention on Human Rights, the protection of religious freedom, and concluded that the government overstepped in penalizing a religious group on that basis. What the court did not do is just as important. It did not rule on whether shunning violates the human rights of individuals. It did not weigh the lived experience of those who lose family, community, and identity. It did not decide whether institutional practices cross the line into harm. That question remains open, and that is where the real significance of this moment lies. Because if this moves to the European Court of Human Rights, which I believe it will, the entire focus shifts. The case is no longer about a government versus a religion. It becomes about individuals, humans, versus an institution. It stops being about whether a state can deny funding and becomes about whether human beings had their fundamental rights violated. And that is where the ground changes. In Norway, the legal lens was primarily Article 9, the right to hold and practice religious beliefs. That is where Watchtower is strongest. But at the European level, former Jehovah's Witnesses can bring forward something far more powerful. Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights. That article protects private life, family life, personal relationships, and psychological integrity. It is not about belief, it is about impact. The argument then becomes clear and difficult to ignore. This is not about doctrine. This is about institutionally enforced behavior that reaches into the most intimate parts of a person's life. When a system requires people to cut off contact with those who leave, when it results in family separation, social isolation, and measurable psychological harm, that is no longer just theology. It is interference with human relationships. And here is why this ruling actually puts former members in a stronger position moving forward. The Norwegian case has already done the hard work of building a factual record. Watchtower's own publications describing avoidance were examined. Testimony about the real-world effects of shunning was heard. The state itself framed the issue in terms of protecting the right to leave a religion without suffering undue consequences. That language aligns already with Article 8, even if the court did not formally rule on it. The tension between rights has already been acknowledged. Even in defending its position, Norway argued that religious freedom must be balanced against the rights and freedoms of others. That balancing act is exactly what the European Court of Human Rights is designed to evaluate. And importantly, that court is not bound by Norway's conclusion. It does not simply defer to national rulings. It re-examines whether an interference with private and family life is justified, necessary, and proportionate. So while this may feel like a loss on the surface, it is not a step backward. It's a shift. in the arena, from a place where Watchtower is most protected to a place where its practices face their strongest scrutiny. Former Jehovah's Witnesses would not be starting from scratch. They would be walking into Strasbourg with a developed evidentiary record, with acknowledged rights, conflicts, and with a legal framework that centers not belief, but harm. They do not need to argue that the theology is wrong. They only need to show that the practice as enforced violates fundamental human rights. And that reframing changes everything. It moves the discussion away from religious identity and into human impact, away from abstract freedom and into lived consequences, away from belief and directly into behavior. So don't see this moment as a defeat. See it for what it really is, the groundwork being laid. The question that matters most was never answered by the Norwegian court. It is still waiting, and it is far more difficult to dismiss. This isn't the end of the road. It's the point where the road finally leads somewhere that can't be avoided, no matter how badly Watchtower wishes it can. Peace and love to you all. And of course, this has been delivered by Linda James with kind regards. Thank you, Linda James, for your work and your efforts. I feel privileged working with you in protecting vulnerable community. And yes, these are difficult situations to be able to navigate. Now, the commenters post, this was at KK-AA-YY. It's standard Jehovah's Witness organizational messaging. Right? I must say, I personally have not come across this kind of engagement. I know that personally, I would have been very, look, it's my own feeling, but my own feeling was I'd be very conservative in posting something like that on the internet. But that's just me. So I found it a bit unusual, but you could say, look, it's standard Jehovah's Witness organizational messaging. I would venture maybe even AI assisted. I mean, AI assists us with all sorts of things, grammar, even suggested texts, you know. How much is actually off the fly these days? So you could say that this message is not particularly strange or a unique red flag on its own. It's actually a textbook example of how I'm sorry for giggling, but it's textbook for how, let's say, many JWs or many religious groups frame legal victories. So what's happening here? Video creator Matthew Millais Gray running this channel focused on recovery from when there's spiritual or institutional abuse, and it happens. I mean, you know, is this unique to JW? No, not unique. But we've been specifically critiquing policies in JW from a practical point of view, like shunning, formerly known as disfellowshipping, and when it is weaponized. In other words, it's putting the institution above the individual, much like what's happened to the prophets in the Bible. Even JW Bible talks about this with Jesus Christ. So handling of child abuse allegations. Your two witness rule issues. I acknowledge there's been changes. And the internal contradictions. I talk about double bind. So yeah, I posted that video discussing the Norway Supreme Court case before or around the ruling. Doing my best to analyze it skeptically or with my working thesis, and predicting nuances that might favor JWs legally. I think I actually said, you know, Norway state will lose. I said they will lose. I've even been quite strong in past religions. I've even said, Norway government, unless you grasp these nuances, you are going to lose in court. Anybody who's faced injustice, if you're thinking that now you've got a path towards justice or righting wrong, I empathize with you, but you are going to lose. You're going to lose the case. And if you try and take it further, you're going to lose the next case. And you'll lose the next case. You might get one step forward, but you're going to have several steps back. Because the system is weighted against you, the way it is set up. Now, I need to make this very, very clear. Because if it isn't made clear, governments and enforcement agencies that have good intentions are going to get railroaded. Norway government is going to lose in its Supreme Court battle. UK Parliament, you are going to lose in your policies. If you're trying to protect the innocent, you will go and you will face litigation and you will lose. Australia, you may be getting clearer about Jehovah's Witnesses, but if you do not get the distinction as to what is happening with regards to justice and ethics, you are going to lose. Japan, you may have persons in government who were Jehovah's Witnesses. You will go into court with all of your training, with all of your legal training, and you will lose. Because this distinction is not being made clear enough. Ooh, I'm sorry. My reactions, if inappropriate, I apologize. Okay. Can I reset? Let me reset. Okay. So I was predicting nuances that might favor Jehovah's Witnesses legally before this even happened. I don't think I was unique on that. Okay. By the way, I'm just going to say this. I take this situation very seriously. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't take it seriously. Okay. I get tickled for a number of reasons. It's a combination of survivor reflex, also some irony, and yes, I've got some dark humor, and it's a coping mechanism. So yeah, look, let me not overly justify. I apologize. So I was trying to talk about these nuances that might favor JWs legally while raising ethical concerns about practice versus theory, especially when you've got some, bad actors that are endeavoring to shield themselves, or persons who've done overreach and gotten into trouble and are trying to shield themselves, right? Maybe they've even got legal help, and the legal help's just going to, we'll handle this. Don't you do anything else, just give us the work to do and we will handle it. And so they advise. Maybe it's a circuit overseer. Maybe it's another elder in the congregation. They say, shut up, shut your mouth, shut up, shut up. What did you do? Got all the details? We got it. Just shut up. So maybe that's happening. So it's maybe not even that person directly doing it, though they should take responsibility for the fact that they've got a third party involved and they're getting some kind of protection on their side, or some kind of advice on their side to protect themselves, and they're protecting their position of authority. So I've commented about this prior to the ruling, that there's all sorts of difficulties, especially if that person's a fiduciary. It starts getting really complicated. And if that person's like, how can I say? There's incentives, like they part or in the middle of a trust fund or supplying properties, or, you know, it just starts getting very, very complicated, starts getting very, very corporate, okay? So I was raising those concerns about practice versus theory. There are some people that are protected very, very well, depending on, I would say, their resources, their wealth. Now, shortly after the April 29-30, this period, 2026 Supreme Court decision, which ruled in favor of JW, and for Ernest JW, who doesn't know necessarily all the nuances, they might just go, yay, yippee, this is great, hallelujah, wow. Okay, now, it invalidated, I'm talking about this Supreme Court decision, it invalidated the deregistration and subsidy denial. They go, here's your money, there you go, off you go. Okay? But the commenter posted, you could say, an official sounding victory announcement. Yay, viva Jambanja, viva the Jambanja of God here, you know, let's celebrate. However, Matthew Millais Gray pinned it and I hope replied thoughtfully. All right, I wanted to acknowledge the win on paper, but pivot to the practical questions about safeguarding of children, because I didn't want now that video and the discussion to deflect from what this is about. Okay, and it was looking like, oh man, there was something in me that was reacting to this, and I was going, no, hold on. Let's just come back to the consistency of policies, right? Let's think about this. So I put there the Matthew 18 application, 15 to 35, right, in abuse cases. So somebody says, okay, leader, man, this is a serious allegation. That leader says, no, I'm taking control of the discussion. I'm exercising my authority to assign elders to investigate me. Oh, man. So I would say that it's a conflict of interest, right? So in abuse cases, it becomes a problem. So the channel or me take responsibility for this. I pinned a note emphasizing the tension between legal outcomes and lived experiences. So I am hoping that I am moderating the channel in a classic way, right? Instead of just going, nah, no moderation here. I'm hoping I am using a correct channel moderation method. If I'm out of line, please tell me, Matt, hey, what are you doing? And of course I will take that on board and I'll start thinking about that, right? So I'm engaging with the opposing views. If you want to say it's an opposing view, okay, however you want to frame it, but this comment, I'm trying to appear to foster discussion while steering it towards what the concerns are in the video discussions and the open circle. And, you know, the letter that Linda James brought forward, which I believe is very important, right? Because of my lived experience. If you pin me down and say, Matt, what have you experienced? I can't deny that I've experienced these tensions, these difficulties. Persons coming to me saying, Matt, please help, we're stuck in this situation, please help. So I have seen it, and I've lived it, not just 3 years, I've lived it for decades, right? Lived with this for decades. So the comment that came, you might say, oh, sounds potentially fanatical. Or, hey, where's the ethics? So let's just frame this correctly. So I encouraged comments to come on. So the comment itself, it shows high commitment group signaling, right? It's common in JW society. There's a sense of triumph. There's triumphalist language. Jehovah has crushed our enemies with a mighty blow. Jehovah has done this. It's a victory. So you've got this attribution of the win entirely to divine favor and Bible-based beliefs. That's where it's swinging towards. Okay. Now I wanted to say that that's not all JW beliefs. I say that there's actually, excuse me, fracture going on. And I've got that in writing. I've got that in how things are being communicated in branch level, right? So I've seen some in the branch who are in significant positions of authority just do their nut about this kind of thing and going, no, would never make a comment like this. Others, they would. They would go, no, that's completely right to do that. That gives praise to Jehovah from their point of view, and they're free to do that. So they're given the attribution of the win entirely to divine favor, Bible-based beliefs as they see it, according to their development. So it's framing the court as thoroughly reviewing. Yeah, this is it. Thoroughly reviewing and approving their practices. And by the way, I am drawing from notes here because, yeah, there was quite a lot to unpack. There's a call to collective reducing and thanks to Jehovah. So that's not unusual for loyal Jehovah's Witnesses. Though you go, well, Matt, were you a loyal JW? Yes. Were you doing everything obediently? Yeah, sure. Did you go beyond what the governing body told you? Nope. Did you go beyond what the branch committee told you to do? Nope. Did you go beyond what the service desk told you to do? Nope. Did you go beyond what the research department told you to do? Nope. Did you go beyond your local elders? Okay, let's take a pause. When those persons encouraged something that was against the law, that was what I had already reported to the next chain, if you want to say, in the theocratic structure. And so that would be a conflict of interest. And so I was acting according to the information that came from a higher level. Why? Because there was a conflict at this particular level. You can't have somebody who created the problem now taking over the situation and saying, well, they're going to judge the situation, or they're going to investigate their own situation. That's just crazy. Do I need to explain this? Okay, it's called a conflict of interest. So that would be the place where I said, no, I'm not isolating myself. And bear in mind, I had put myself into a situation where I had isolated myself. I had played ball. I said, all right, on some meetings I will do that, and for a couple of years, bear in mind, years, I went along with it. I said, right, you want it done this way? Fine, I'll do it this way. You want yielding? You got yielding. So it was only when it got to a saturation point, because some people will say, oh, you were too quick to snap this up. No. This isn't just even recent or a past year or even 3 years. Been working on this, I would say, at least over 26 years. At least. I would even go longer, 30 years. But 26 years that I can say, yes, been working on this in a very, very specific way. And you got to go, Matt, if you're just going to yield when things are wrong, you are enabling the situation. You're not actually protecting. So all I did was I applied Matthew 18, said, no, I'm going to bring witnesses this time. You had several times where in a meeting you didn't accept the evidence, you didn't accept what I was saying, or you said, oh, I'm confusing you. I lack the language skills to be able to speak to you simply. And I said, right, let's bring in a couple of persons that you do respect who have got those skills, because they're in the know. And it was denied. So I mentioned this because somebody said to me, oh, Matt, you were too quick to act here. No. And when I explained to them and said, no, can I show you a few things? Look how we've exhausted this. Do you see the communication? Do you see this? Do you see when it started? They went, ooh, Matt, didn't. I apologize. Actually said to me, "Man, I didn't realize. I thought this was just an a recent thing. Didn't realize. Ooh." And then when that happened, they said, "Oh, by the way, we'll tell you what happened with us." And suddenly there's floods of similar stories coming out, and I'm going, "Oh, this is a turnaround." Initially, you were sort of giving me buck, and it turns out you had your own story. Okay, anyway, it's just it's just an interesting experience. Okay, it's my own experience. So this comment that came in, all right, it's how Watchtower Publications, branch letters, members, if you want to say associates, they often respond to legal wins, perceived victory. So, yeah, it's enemies versus brotherhood. That's what it is. It's our enemies being, let's sing songs now. Strong in-group, out-group framing. Confirmation bias. Theodicy. God is protecting his people. See? So I feel good. Yeah. So it's reinforcement of loyalty and unity. Now, is there a potential red flag for an outsider or critic that aligns with my reaction now as being a responsible moderator? The comment, I believe, okay, and you can correct me, it dismisses the underlying concerns, shunning's impact on exit. Say, for instance, somebody's harmed, or can they shield themselves, or they're just going to get into more trouble? Can they shield the vulnerable, or they're going to get into more trouble? So it's the impact on doing that, or even exit, or even being kicked out, right? By somebody who's caused the problem, or allegedly created the problem, right? Or is in real trouble. I mean, really. So this is the reaction, okay, without getting stuck on this. So I felt it was dismissing the underlying concerns. It was kind of distracting from what had been presented in the videos. And it was kind of like a power dynamics thing. It was like declaring total vindication. I was going, total vindication? Is it really total vindication? So it, to me, was coming across as tone deaf. This is a problem. Or provocative. Hey, this is trying to stir it. Let's get a provocative situation going. When posted on a critical recovery channel, I'm even going, what is this doing? If this is coming from a loyal JW, they're going, okay, well, Matt, you've always done permanent appeal. You've said you're a JW. I go, I'm black, I'm white, I'm grey, I'm all of these things in between. And the reason for that is because I believe it's driven by ethics. And so some persons might not necessarily agree with the way that I do things. But that's the stratagem or ethic that I have done, right? So I'm going, okay, well, this looks tone deaf. It looks provocative on a essential critical recovery channel. I regard this as a recovery channel, and especially right after a video raising safeguarding questions. And I'd like to believe that I've exhausted this. And when I compare with actual persons on a branch level who've looked at this and contacted me and go, tell me, are you in any doubt as to what I'm explaining? No, Matt, not in any doubt. Yep, but whoa. So I go, okay, well, is there a way that you would reframe it? No, wouldn't. So I realized just saying that can just cause more trouble. But it is what it is. It's what's happening, right? You've got this fracture within the organization, I say, from my point of view, okay? But I think it's aligned with others. So this mighty blow phrasing, it's got this militant undertone, even if it's metaphorical in JW theology. So you can say, oh, well, that's evidence of personal fanaticism. Is it? I don't know. How do you judge these things? Because you go, well, it's normal in JW culture. You know, many religions do victory laps, like, God won the day, God won the day, hallelujah, you know, this is it, and, you know, praise be to God. So this, also the name, KK-AA-YY, it's just generic, it's obfuscated, so it's common for, you could say, members, associates, avoiding direct identification, right? They give themselves, you know, these names. So what's the broader context in the ethics? So the Norway case wasn't a criminal trial. I think we've got that clear. If I listen to the chat, that's coming through, okay? It's not a criminal trial on abuse or shunning's harms. It was a civil administrative dispute about whether the state, in its deregistration and subsidy cutoff, violated religious freedom laws. So the Supreme Court, it sided on or with Jehovah's Witnesses or JWs on religious liberty grounds, consistent with European human rights jurisprudence, the study of law, the science of law. Let me just explain that word. So that protects even unpopular religious practices. And we've got unpopular religious practices. You could name them, right? Unless they meet a high threshold for restriction. So critics say, Matt, you're a critic. Okay, yeah, sure. The argument is that it misses the practical reality. So how shunning affects free exit, family ties, you know, intimate ties, and reporting abuse, all of that. Your internal handling of allegations, so your two-witness rule, okay. Reluctance to involve authorities promptly, potential for retaliation against whistleblowers. This is the problem. Yes, I know that the SLF or the instructions to elders has changed. I'm quite aware of that, right? When it comes to CA. Children, right? But remember, we're talking about practically. We're talking about what practically occurs. So in the Norway case, it's whether state funding should subsidize groups with high control elements. We know that. It's there. So these are legitimate ethical tensions that have come up in liberal democracies. So balancing religious autonomy with child protection, individual rights, and preventing harm. So the court's ruling doesn't resolve lived experiences, the complaints. You know, this is what we lived, this is what we saw. No, that's not, we don't validate your experience. We don't validate your complaint. What? What is it going to take? You know? So the court's ruling doesn't resolve that situation, the lived experience, the complaint. It just says the state overreached in this penalty. So pinned replies like what came through there, and I mean, that's not isolated, right? Trying to have a measured way to keep the conversation going without fully endorsing the victory narrative. So it highlights the gap between legal wins on the ground of safeguarding. So it's a fair point for discussion, right? So what's the summary? The summary is, okay, you get comments that are loyal JW boilerplate things. Celebrating real legal win. Now it can feel like a red flag in this context. Why? Because it's posted on, let's face it, a critical channel, and it uses strong in-group rhetoric, and it exemplifies why these issues remain contentious. One side sees divine vindication and protected faith. The other sees unaddressed risks to vulnerable members. I even say right within the religion itself, not just outside, or those that have exited, or those who've been booted out. Okay. So, Matthew Millais Gray as host. I'm trying to use it to probe deeper on ethics and practice, okay, which I hope is fitting the channel mission, that is of recovery from abuse. That's the focus. It's surpassing spiritual abuse. So no major deception here, no unusual manipulation, I could say, as a parent. It's just standard ideological collision or clash, right? So now I want to raise this question. Given the ethics that's been discussed and this discussion of protection, is it over? Right? Is it over? I'm going to say no. This matter of ethics and protection is not over. The Norway Supreme Court ruling, that is April 29, 30, 2026, what's it? HR 2026-1009-A, was a significant legal win for Jehovah's Witnesses on religious freedom grounds. But it didn't resolve the underlying ethical, practical, and safeguarding dilemmas that's been described on this channel. The ruling actually decided, okay, that it should overturn this deregistration and denial of state subsidies funding. So the court found that the Norwegian government failed to provide sufficient evidence that Jehovah's Witness practices, particularly shunning, social distancing, previously disfellowshipped or disassociated members or congregants or associates, including baptized minors, amounted to negative social control. They said no. Also, this thing of psychological violence or abuse or undue pressure preventing free exit in a way that violated the religious community's acts of or human rights standards. ECHR Article 9. Thank you, Linda James, for bringing that letter to us. It emphasized JW internal guidelines. Family ties are not broken, fully broken. For minors in the same household. I mean, so much so that Brazil had to capture this on video, right? Okay. But anyway, Norway, did they capture this? No. So they said it was lack of documented proof or widespread harm meeting the legal threshold. Wow. Okay. Anyway, that's what the ruling decided. So this was a 3-2 split decision. I mean, it's purposefully done this way. Okay, there's 5. Wasn't 6. It's done this way. So the minority was more sympathetic to the state's concerns about pressure on minors and family impacts. It's a lot more than just JW. I'm going to tell you that right now. This has a potential knock-on effect. So the key point was it wasn't a criminal trial or a broad inquiry into child abuse handling or a mandate forcing policy changes inside the organization, although I'll say yes, it did trigger changes. Oh yes it did. It was an administrative challenge about whether the state could penalize the group via funding registration. Courts, including this one, and precedents from the European Court of Human Rights, give strong deference to religious groups' internal disciplinary practices, unless harm is clearly proven at a high threshold. I mean, it has to be major, in your face. This is what they're looking for. So it's got to be, I'm going to say, like what happened in Brazil. Can they catch it on cams? Can they see this happening in a small town where there's cameras everywhere? I mean, you talk about the panopticon, right? Well, it took a panopticon, digital panopticon to capture it, right? So that was the proof. That was the high threshold. That's what they need. And that's why, in the culture, JW culture, if you caught, not even just recording, I mean transcripting what goes on, you're going to get in for a penalty there. So there's all of these things along the way, which makes it very difficult to create the capture. You need to have this kind of Orwellian 1984 means of capturing, or what is it? Interesting that it happened in Brazil. Hey, I mean, you've got that film Brazil, where things go wrong in the machine, right? So it's interesting that Brazil actually captured it. Anyway, that's another thing. We're talking about Norway. So the double bind, besides the fact that, to actually capture the disciplinary practices, to actually capture this thing is discouraged. I mean, the reason why they're going, oh no, it hasn't hit this high threshold, though you might have recordings here and recordings there, it's going, no, it needs to be more. It needs to really tip. Yeah, so the double bind for baptized minors, parents and elders remains. So the ruling, I'm going to say, does not free individuals from the practical dilemmas. So you're reporting or you're raising concerns. JW policy still operates under scriptural frameworks like Matthew 18 for handling sins, the two-witness rule, for congregational judicial matters. It's still all pervasive, right? Although, yes, you're saying, Matt, you're not looking at the latest SLF. You're not looking at the latest update. Yes, I got it. When it comes to CA, that they've changed rules here. Sure. Okay, got it. So it's raising serious allegations, especially against leaders. There's a substitute circuit overseer, branch committee member, governing body, it doesn't matter. Whatever, pioneer, whatever, congregant. It can still risk being viewed as disloyal or slander or causing division. As soon as you raise it, I mean, all it takes is an elder, for instance, who has been sloppy with their email and their family's read the email, and you discover that this person's been on the body for years and the family's been reading the email. It's like that. You say to me it doesn't happen. It happens. I'm telling you now, it happens. You get leaks in all kinds of ways. So sorry, got to take a moment just to breathe. This has been a hard one, but anyway. Please bear with me as I endeavor to feed the system with this information. So yeah, the situation is there's this risk leading to social disciplinary consequences. So your recent adjustments, such as involving parents for minors, right? It exists on paper, but critics and survivors report inconsistent application and fear of retaliation. If you say to me, Matt, get on this polygraph and tell me, is there or is there no retaliation? Let's put it this way. What is your name? Matthew Millais Gray. This is polygraph. Fine. Tell me, Matt, is there retaliation? Yes. My polygraph's going to just say, yeah, sure. Matt's telling the truth. Okay. So is there silence? Yes. Failing to address known harm, especially child abuse. It creates moral, legal, and in some jurisdictions, yeah, a real issue. It creates personal distress. I mean, I can tell you that. Look at me, you know. It may conflict with protecting the congregation, directives, Okay, that's where it comes into play. This is why there's a difficulty. So for the child or for the minor, a baptized minor who reports harm, questions doctrines. Why is it like this? Why is it? What do we do? What's my next step? I don't know. What do we do? I can't stand sitting here with this person here who's running the congregation. They tell me do things. I'm just going to be disobedient because I know what they've done. Yeah, to capture this. So there's shunning. This limited association can still apply even if family ties at the home are preserved, which I'm going to say, how? Where is this preserved? They just say this. They say it's preserved and it carries on as normal. Really? Really? The lived experience is, no, it puts you into conflict. I mean, it's the sword. Jesus said, I came to put not peace but a sword. Well, that happens. But the court accepted the organization's framing that this doesn't legally constitute prohibited harm for most cases. But bear in mind that Norway state had to get out of a jam. They're looking, how do we get out? How do we do this conservatively? That was the way they were looking at things. So realistically, the ruling reinforces the status quo for JW internal governance in Norway, and it sets a precedent favoring religious autonomy elsewhere. That's what happens. So it does not mandate independent oversight, mandatory external reporting reforms, or changes to core practices like shunning. So what are the next logical steps in current governance systems? So in liberal democracies, okay, your options after such a high court loss include the following. Legislative policy adjustments, it's most practical nationally, okay. Norway or other countries could tighten religious registration funding criteria with more targeted evidence-based rules. Example, requiring demonstrative or demonstrated compliance with child safeguarding standards. Okay, mandatory clergy reporting of abuse, or limits on coercive practices. So your broader coercive control or psychological abuse laws could be refined. So some places are already moving on mandated compulsory reporting for clergy. Then you get your civil lawsuits and inquiries. So individual victims, parents, whistleblowers, pursuing damages for specific harm, neglect, failure to protect, your royal commissions or your independent inquiries like Australia's can expose patterns without directly banning practices. So yeah, that's what we say. That's why we say that's very, very important. So your international advocacy pressure, European Court of Human Rights, though Jehovah's Witnesses, got to tell you, have got a strong record there on religious freedom. I'm telling you now. Your public awareness, survivor support networks, and political lobbying, man, you're up against this machine, this real powerful machine. So your public awareness, survivor support networks, political lobbying, all of that, media, ex-member advocacy, or even those that you could say are, physically in, mentally out, or those that see fracture, or those that are saying, oh no, I'm staying in here because I'm trying to lever things for the good outcome. It keeps pressure on for transparency. So your internal voluntary change, it's unlikely without sustained external incentives. Let's make that absolutely apparent, okay? Because without it, there aren't the necessary changes. I'm telling you, it doesn't happen. So when you've got these external incentives, right, you get minor incentives, you get minor adjustments due to pressure. That's what it is, over time. So, like reporting on abuse, where law requires it, but core doctrines remain, that's an example. So the Supreme Court of Norway resolved the immediate funding registration dispute in JW favor after significant state effort. Tells you what a vulnerable person would have to go through. I mean, can they go to a lawyer? Can they go to an enforcement agency and expect support after this? It's difficult. So it didn't declare that the practices are ethically optimal or eliminate risks for vulnerable members. Didn't do that. Okay, remember we're talking about a liberal society. We need to be clear in mind about that. Right? So the ethical concerns around high control dynamics, child protection, consistency, double binds for reporters, it persists and will likely shift to other arenas like legislation, civil accountability, and ongoing societal scrutiny. So we see that in many sectors. We see that in government sectors where you're going, well, there's been atrocities that have happened in leadership for years, that they've known about for years. Who's in prison? Is anybody in prison? Who's in prison? So I say it's at the city gates, folks. That's where it is. So that's where your progress is happening. So it's incremental. It's driven by persistent advocacy rather than single court victories. So it's very, very important. Excuse me. So that is the classic tension in pluralistic society. So I say, look, if Norway had won, what was that going to do for our freedoms? Was it going to be even worse? So you want to protect religious liberty while safeguarding individuals from harm. So I say, okay, look, in terms of actual loyal Jehovah's Witness elders, moving to the elders, when you see a comment like from KKAAYY, and they are in the know on the legal front line. Let's say they were instructed to destroy a bunch of files. Yeah, go destroy these files. They've had to read them. Say, oh, that destroy, keep that one, destroy, keep that one. Maybe that was their assignment. So now they're in the know because they've got that information, right? So they're in the know on the legal front line. Maybe they've had to sign non-disclosure agreements, I don't know, whatever, but they're in the know because of the actual cases that they've handled. Would their ethical concern still need to be dealt with if they had to present their congregations as law-abiding and safe and actually in line with their own governing body statements under oath, like at the Australian Royal Commission, for instance, the inquiry into abuse handling by the institution? Here's the answer, and this has been, I've got to tell you, if you're finding this tough to listen to, it's tough to be able to formulate this thing. I promise you. But here's the answer. Yes. Sorry, Matt. Yes, what? Yes, a conscientious, loyal elder who is knowledgeable about frontline cases, the Norway ruling and the Australian Royal Commission, ARC, testimony, would likely face ongoing ethical concerns. It's in the neck, it's in the spine, it's recorded on the body, okay? It's clutching everywhere, all right? Because that's what the body does. It records all of these things, psycho-spiritual things. Oh yeah, it's recorded in the stream of consciousness. So yeah, this Norway ruling the Australian Royal Commission, that testimony, that loyal elder would likely face ongoing ethical concerns, and these stem from tensions between presenting the congregation as, oh, we're fully law-abiding and safe. Put him on the lie detector test. Polygraph's going to go crazy. I'm telling you now. Okay, it's going to go wild. It's not going to be a nice little stream like this. No, it's just going to go crazy. You can't present the congregation as fully law-abiding and safe. Please, can't. And aligning with public official governing body statements. Oh, yeah, we're compliant with Jeffrey Jackson. On the polygraph, I'm telling you. Because the practical realities of handling cases under current policies, it's a mismatch. It's like polar opposites. Those are your key areas of tension, because your alignment with Jeffrey Jackson, Geoffrey, Jackson, Jackson, his testimony, when was it? 2015. Oh, it's over 10 years, 11 years, right?
You've got the Bible there. If you go to 1 Timothy chapter 3,
yes,
verse 4, there's a discussion of a man presiding over his household, having his children in subjection. Now, what does that mean?
That's a very good question, Your Honour. Biblically speaking, the word subjection infers respect and a willingness to comply with direction. It does not...
Your Bible then provides a reference back to Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4.
That is correct.
Which imposes the obligation on fathers to bring their children up in the discipline and admonition of Jehovah. What's the discipline of Jehovah?
So, Your Honour, the original language word there, discipline, it indicates a process of teaching, educating, making a disciple.
Well, from that reference in Ephesians, your Bible takes us back to Proverbs chapter 13, verse 24.
Proverbs 13:24, yes.
And the exact quote is, whoever holds back his rod hates his son. What does that mean?
So, Your Honour, you'll notice there's an asterisk there on the term rod, and you see the footnote, discipline or punishment. So, in the application of this, the term rod is used as a symbol or a metaphor to indicate the authority to give some punishment. For example, in a modern day setting, my father could say to me, I don't go to the movies because I had broken some of the rules of the home.
So it's not about inflicting corporal punishment then?
It absolutely is not about inflicting corporal punishment.
It would have been when first written, wouldn't it?
How people applied it back then at that time, of course, is open to question.
Well, what you're telling me, as I understand it, is that your religion, your church, is prepared to interpret the Bible having regard to contemporary social attitudes and standards. Is that right?
Obviously, Your Honour, we need to take that into consideration, but the primary responsibility we have is to think, what does Jehovah God mean by this? And we look at other scriptures. One of the problems that many folk have when they read the Bible is they take one verse and they assume it means something out of context or not in reference to other scriptures. So for our understanding, Jehovah has said that children should be raised in a loving environment. Jesus was raised in such an environment.
Well, I've taken you to the way your own church constructs the biblical references, which, as we've noticed, takes us back to Proverbs. Correct?
That is correct.
But what you've given us is the understanding which your church now has about how that's to apply in contemporary society. Is that right?
That's a good question. Obviously, I can only speak about what we understand this to mean now, but I would argue the case that even back in ancient times, God did not have in mind for children to be beaten up in a bad way.
Does your church accept corporal punishment of children?
Our church accepts the family arrangement and expects that parents have the responsibility to discipline and raise their children.
That doesn't answer my question. Do you accept corporal punishment?
In our literature, I think you'll see time and time again, we've endeavoured to explain that here, discipline is referring to more a mental point of view.
I regret to tell you, you're still not answering my question. Sorry. Do you accept corporal punishment?
No.
You don't?
Not personally, no. And not as an organisation. We don't encourage it.
But do you prohibit it?
Our literature has pointed out that the true way to discipline children is by educating them, not giving corporal punishment. Your Honour, I can only tell you the spirit behind our writings.
Jackson, governing body member, still is, testified that the organisation does not teach or encourage corporal punishment, framing the rod as a guiding standard rather than physical discipline. I think I've been a lot more fluid in other videos than this one. This one's just very, very deliberate, and I thought, oh, man, I've just got to get this one out. He emphasized child protection and cooperation with authorities. That's what he said. That was the public face. Sure. Okay. But in practice, many elders have observed or been involved in situations where publications, meeting parts, or local council encouraged or tolerated loving physical discipline. Sometimes in ways that crossed into reportable territory or in certain jurisdictions. So this becomes child abuse in South Africa. Straight. Yeah. So this creates the perceived gap between sworn testimony and on-the-ground application. Loyal elders aware of this must reconcile. Are we accurately representing our practices publicly versus internally? Your child safeguarding and reporting policies, official JW policy now states, oh yeah, elders should report if a child is at ongoing risk, even on one witness, and inform victims, survivors, parents of their right to report. They emphasize compliance with mandatory reporting laws. However, long-standing critiques from ARC and others highlight the two-witness rule for internal judicial action, or what do you say, elders committee action, tribunal. Routing the reports through, guess where legal department branch first. So your potential reluctance or delays in external reporting, what is it? Absent legal mandate and risks for those raising concerns, being seen as, oh, well, you're causing divisions. Hey, Matt, don't like what you did phoning up the branch even. Really? I couldn't phone the branch? Really? You don't like that? Are you prepared to tell the other elders? I didn't say that. It was a closed door statement. So elders who've handled cases know this variability exists locally. Oh yeah, they do. So some situations resolve protectively, others leave elders feeling constrained, especially if higher direction prioritizes congregational unity, privacy, or avoiding reproach. Told you about antidepressants as a potential solution, right? So what's your post-Norway ruling setting? And if you've come this far, well done. Appreciate that. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting this down so that we've got a transcript to work with. You know, just go, okay, let's put this into the system and just let's have it transcribe it. I realize I'm really stuck to notes here because to get through all of these points and to get up to date has been huge. Okay. So the 2026 Supreme Court win vindicated JW practices legally in Norway. Why? No sufficient proof for undue pressure or rights violations regarding shunning minors. Shucks, eh? So it reinforces religious autonomy, but that's just how the system works. But we've got evidence. It's not evidence. It's not evidence. Like I said, you've got to have something like Brazil with your panopticon, with your cameras all over the place in order to capture this thing. Because, okay, look, what Norway didn't do, it didn't address the internal consistency or the lived experiences of victims, okay, or whether practices always matched the loving, safe, law-abiding public image. The court applied a high evidentiary threshold for state intervention. It didn't declare the practice as ideal or free of all risk. If you followed this, there should be a pattern that's forming in the mind here. I know it's a lot to take in, but if one perseveres with it, you get the pattern. The pattern unlocks, ding, and you can't unsee it. Because now you've got ethical concerns for a loyal elder, somebody who says, no, I take my work seriously. I take this matter of ethics and how I've been trained, I take it seriously. So a dedicated, loyal, obedient elder trying to be honest. Remember the polygraph? Is it doing this or it's doing this? What's the polygraph doing? Okay, because this thing is about, oh, this is how I present myself in front of the Almighty Sovereign of the universe, or Supreme Consciousness. This is how I present myself. Can't lie. Open up the heart, open up the mind. What's in there? Beep, 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 beep. Problem. A dedicated elder trying to be honest would be grappling with this, saying, can I confidently tell the congregation members, stand up there, parents, authorities, that our processes fully protect children and vulnerable ones without qualification, especially if they've seen the inconsistencies or heard survivor accounts? Matt, is the congregation safe? Yes. No. Point made, right? Okay. So does presenting the organization as fully aligned with governing body testimony and in harmony with law per the Norway win messaging overlook practical gaps? Yes or no? What's the polygraph going to do? I'm sort of forgetting where it is, but what's the polygraph going to do? If a parent, or let's put it this way, Holy Spirit, replace the polygraph with Holy Spirit. Oh God, bring Holy Spirit and pull out any injurious root that's in my heart and mind. I'm telling you now, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a problem doing that. If a parent or a minor reports harm and faces social disciplinary pushback or fears it, or the society pushback, or if silence protects an abuser, am I complicit in a double bind? Just like what Norway state did, that they went to the trouble of now saying, well, we need to take it to the Supreme Court level. And then you've got this loyalty versus integrity. So JW culture strongly emphasizes unity. You must have unity. Psalms 133:1. Psalms 133:1. Psalms 133:1. Psalms 133:1. Wow, hypnotic. Okay, this is it. Sorry for the overacting. So you've got this loyalty versus integrity culture, right? So unity, Psalm 133:1. Avoiding apostate narratives. Oh no, this isn't the congregation. This is apostate. This is an apostate elder. Get him out. Get him out. Right? Doesn't have to be an elder, anybody. But I mean, in my case, elder. And trusting the governing body theocratic direction. Oh, no, we trust. They would never harm us. They love us. No. It's not possible that this could happen. Oh, and as for the circuit officer, Jehovah would never have appointed him into this position if he was all, if he wasn't above or board. No, we trust Jehovah. We trust Christ. And that's how you get your problem in Pennsylvania. And the mayor's office had to go, no, these people are going to prison. They are going to the can. Many Jehovah's Witnesses don't know about it. They have no idea. Jehovah's Witnesses in South Africa, did they even know about some of the people that I've worked with? That this one's gone to prison. This one was removed because red card. Guess what it was? Not just a minor child abuse thing. I mean, out of control. Go and take a look at what happened in the court. It's in the court system. But because of this unity thing, they'll even tell you, no, don't even go to the courts, folks. Don't. That's the world under Satan's control, under Satan's hand. So just when you raise internal concerns, they'll just tell you, no, you refuse, not looking at it. No, take a look. No. And so that triggers scrutiny. Okay. Excuse me. So many elders resolve this through faith. Jehovah will correct things. Matt, pray about it to Jehovah. Leave it in his hands. It'll be fine. And by the way, we've assigned you to Namibia Desert. Go there. There's somebody out in the sand somewhere. That's your next assignment. So look, I'm exaggerating. Compartmentalizing. Okay? Compartmentalizing. So that's how it's done. You've been given a new assignment. Off you go. So not all elders experience this as a crisis. So some elders say, I've never experienced it. What are you talking about? No, it's been wonderful. Tickety-boo, Matt. You know, all joy. I had pioneer partners like this going, Matt, I've never experienced this in all my days. I said, have you ever asked these questions in all your days? Have you ever faced these things in all your days? No, of course not. So of course it was all joy. You know, it was like, what's it, Paradise Lost. It's just all joy, sure. You know, angels going, oh, let's sing. You know. So not all elders experience this as a crisis. I mean, it's compartmentalizing. That's how it's done. So many sincerely believe that the policies are scripturally sound. It's fine. It's protective overall. The external criticism, no, it's exaggerated. We've been warned against this. No. It's satanic opposition. Oh, it's the Judas in our midst. Matt, you're Judas. What? Yeah, you're Judas. Bad man. Okay. Yes. Okay. So they see adjustments over time. No, Jehovah's refining the congregation. There's more emphasis on parental involvement. We just got an SLF book update again. You know, again and again and again and again and again. So they go, yeah, no, the organization's moving ahead. The times are just more wicked, you know. No, we're legally compliant. So this is progress, Matt. It's all progress. You go, where did it come from? From you? I'm telling you now, it didn't come from you. I know where it's coming from. I know where it's coming from. It's not coming from you. Okay. So for those that are in the know on the legal front line, who've dealt with real cases, you know, the cognitive and moral dissonance is real. Remember polygraph? So that is the common reason why some elders discreetly or quietly step down or leave. So the weight of responsibility, even circuit overseers, I know certain circuit overseers, they go, there is no way I'm ever stepping foot on branch facilities, ever again. It's not happening. I mean, sure, okay. I mean, there's some who are outspoken. They just go, it's not happening, not doing it, not walking in there. So that's how this happens, because the weight of responsibility, the toll on well-being, health, all of that, responsibility, justice or injustice, your potential legal exposure in stricter mandatory reporting environments, and the gap between ideal and reality. How do they reconcile it? So folks, thank you very much for listening to this. What is the bottom line? The Norway ruling strengthens the organization's legal position, but doesn't eliminate these internal ethical tensions. Doesn't go away, doesn't vanish. So a thoughtful, loyal elder, and I'm emphasize elders because that's been my experience, but I don't want to undermine other person's experiences, but they're there. Okay? But I say a thoughtful, loyal elder would still need to navigate how to support victims effectively within policy limits. It's very difficult. Maintain transparency without causing division. I mean, try it. Go ahead. Let me know how you do. And over what kind of time period you've been doing it. And then tell me, how do you reconcile public statements, testimony with pastoral realities? All the best, folks. Because this is an inherent challenge in any high control religious system, I'm going to say, even in a governmental system. But high control religious system, balancing divine directives, internal discipline, and modern societal legal expectations on child protection. I mean, the progress typically comes from external pressure, laws, inquiries, lawsuits, combined with internal reflection by those handling cases. If you've made it this far, congratulations, well done. That was a big one. I think I'm going to go and have a nap now, or I'm going to at least go and lie down. Thank you very much for being with me. Friends, family, thank you very much for your support. Observers, thank you for being here. That helps to keep the conversation going, and it helps persons who've got genuine inquiry and persons who are endeavoring to survive what they can feel is a real tension. So of course, let's approach this with essential critical thinking. Let's add to the working thesis with proper antithesis for synthesis, and with healthy skepticism. I'm going to close by not only saying thank you and that I appreciate you for being here. Thank you very much for your presence. I'm going to say you are the reason we are here. Please go on. Take care.